Brian Downs delivered 1,000 keynotes over Ireland and Europe, but the toughest stage was the one in his own mind. We talked about what it's really like to build a business with ADHD.
It's scary.
How to turn chaos into creativity, and what public speaking teaches you about being seen, not being perfect.
I know there's people out there that can't stand me. Grand. What can I do about it?
If you've ever felt scattered, misunderstood, or like your brain just works a bit differently, this episode will hit home. You all set?
Yeah. Not a bother. Hi, Lucy.
Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for coming up all the way from Cork.
Thanks for having me. Beautiful part of the world. Nice trip on a Sunday morning.
I'd love to firstly dive deep into your origin story. Okay.
My origin story, right?
For context, currently you are
a professional speaker and performance consultant.
And how did you get into that? How did it all start off?
I got into it kind of by accident, I suppose. How it started off, God, how far back do you want me to go? I had my first business at 18 when I was a student. I was selling sports equipment into schools. That kind of came around because I was involved in a couple of other things, and this kind of opportunity fell in my lap, right? Mm-hmm. At that stage, I was involved in all sorts of things. I'm heavily involved in sport and working in a pub and coaching and getting paid for all this and supposedly studying, which I didn't do a huge amount of. But I'd always wanted to work for myself. It was always kind of in my head. I'm not entirely sure where that came from, right? And then I went to college, and then I, finished college and went to Australia for a while and got a real job while I was there, and came back and got another real job and had a couple of real jobs then. Then went into business with some people. We grew a fairly substantial business, but there came a point where I needed to remove myself from that. And I started studying again. Always had a really big interest in people. The sporting angle had given me a real big interest in performance and kind of what made people tick. So before I left that business, I'd started studying different things again. Coaching, training, neurolinguistics, did some applied psychology and behaviours and things like that. Things I was actually genuinely really interested in, because I'd studied accountancy the first time round. Mm-hmm. Never worked as an accountant, never really had any interest in it, didn't enjoy it, found it a bit boring and restrictive. It just wasn't me, right? When I did leave that business, I decided that I just wanted to work for me on my own and do something. So I started coaching. That first year, I made very little money. I think I turned over about $8,000. So this would have been 2011. It was probably my first full year. Just kind of figuring out what I was at and where I was going and kind of what was I trying to do with this. And it has kind of evolved since then, I suppose is the best way to put it. My first stab at coaching was, I was still involved in that other business, but it was kind of a side hustle, as we call it now. Was around weight loss coaching, because I'd gotten an injury, I'd put on a lot of weight and I'd lost it again. And I thought, okay, well, I can help people with this. I fucking hated it. It was not me at all. So then I started to go back to what I know. There's Lucy saying hello. Went back to our new business, and I understood people, understood performance, and started to move in that direction. And really that became about helping people to perform better as individuals, and that evolved into teams and looking at organisations and what I call performance enablement now.
Yeah.
And over time you kind of, I still read a huge amount. I'm still involved in learning, and I always will be, I think. So that's evolving for me all the time. As part of that, kind of looking at how we do performance in the world of work and the impact it has on people. And we don't do it very well. It's about ticking boxes or metrics and very, very restrictive metrics in some cases. Not having difficult conversations, performance reviews or appraisals once a year, which is kind of pointless. So I choose to look at it more from an enablement perspective, and what can we do to help people do really great work. And I do think that people, there aren't that many people who come to work and figure, I couldn't be arsed. Most people want to do good work. Most people want to perform well, but a lot of the time the structures and politics of organisations get in the way. Leadership gets in the way. And sometimes they've just chosen the wrong job. You know, I mean, there's responsibility on both sides. It's not just about the company. Sometimes it's about the individual who are going down a road that may be safe, or maybe they find easy, or it's just, this is where I can get a job, right? So nowadays, yeah, I speak a lot about leadership, about teams, and with that kind of core of performance built around it. And I speak a bit about mental health, which I think is very important. It's something that's very important to me.
So I was looking on your LinkedIn, Brian, and you wrote an article about, I think the title was A New Lens, or A Different Lens.
A Different Lens.
Different Lens. And the first two lines you said, I always knew I was different. Tell us a bit about that. How did that thought come about?
That piece is about having an ADHD brain, but not finding out until I was 46, so 5 years ago. I've always known that I'm a little different. I engage with the world in a slightly different way. I look at things differently. In some cases, I pick up on patterns quicker than most people would. I also think I react sometimes different. You know, when I was younger, I certainly would have been a lot more emotional and prone to emotional outbursts.
Yeah.
Because, well, for lots of different reasons. You know, the overwhelm, or, you know, just getting frustrated because people couldn't get what I was trying to say, or whatever it was. But I have always been different in how I approached the world and how I thought about things. When I say different to the people that were around me, right? As we know, there's lots of people with neurodiverse brains now. At least being told that they've neurodiverse brains. It's much more, it's something that we can talk about a hell of a lot more. Whereas when I was in school, it wasn't really a thing, even though it was a thing, but it wasn't something that was acknowledged or diagnosed or looked for. So that whole article really was talking about neurodiversity and the fact that we can look at the world with a different lens. That we can see things that I suppose a neurotypical brain, I don't like using that term, but a neurotypical brain might not. It's a bit about our, not just a neurodiverse brain, but everybody's a bit unique, right? We've all got something about us. We'll all see something different, see things maybe slightly differently. And in the world of work, when we think about performance, I think it's important to tap into that and allow people to tap into that for themselves, right? So if you've ever been in a session with a team, and you know it's about problem solving or brainstorming, whatever it is, you'll have lots of people who are afraid to put their idea on the table. To kind of say, what if we tried this? Because there's too many constraints put on it, or they'll think, oh well, they won't like that, or yeah, for whatever reason, I don't want to throw it out there. And I'd take a completely different view and say, throw it out. Let's see what we make of it. Okay, yeah, it might be shite, but that's okay. Let's figure it out. Let's throw it out. And I've always tended to throw my stuff out on the table, take a chance.
I don't know, do you know a lady called Cody Sanchez? She's a serial entrepreneur.
Yes, I have come across her.
Have you, yeah?
Yeah, I've seen her on Instagram, yeah.
Yeah. She would have been on Diary of a CEO a few times with Stephen Bartlett, but she often mentions, like in big corporations, when they're faced with a massive problem, they will often purposely bring someone in with ADHD to solve that problem, because the neurotypical brain as such can maybe only see one or two possible solutions, but the ADHD brain can see a variety of different solutions.
Yes, some can, for sure. I think a lot of that is down to pattern recognition, and it's not that the neurotypical brain, as it were, won't see it. It'll just, maybe the ADHD brain will see it quicker, or is more willing to throw it out on the table.
Okay.
It still depends very much on the individual, but yes,
Of course.
absolutely. You know, I think, you know, some of the world's best entrepreneurs, you know, business leaders are ADHD brains. and Cody, I think she runs multiple small businesses, which would be very ADHD behaviour in my experience, at least. That, you know, there's lots of things going on and there's plenty to keep the mind engaged and activated. But there's a lot to be said for leveraging neurodiversity, rather than kind of putting it in the corner. You know, yes, for some people, for some neurodiverse people, there are accommodations required, and you know, I think people need to be clear and given instructions, things like that. But it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And look, they're small things, really. You're not asking for a whole pile. I think, I'll touch on this, but I don't know enough about it to go into depth. But people who are autistic may need some different accommodations and more accommodations. But again, it's worth it. I think there's been a fear around neurodiversity for a long time, or people will be judgmental or have preconceived ideas, you know.
Stigma, nearly.
Stigmas, for sure. ADHD people are scattered or can't focus or whatever it is. And I actually have a problem with the name ADHD, the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's actually not a problem of attention deficit. It's interest and it's novelty. It's you know, I know my brain can absolutely hyper focus on something that I'm really interested in, something that I really care about. I'm in, you know.
And you're even more in than.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, it's yeah. Let's go full on. Let's figure this out. And for me, problem solving is one of those things. I love solving interesting problems. Love it. I think it's cool. And you get to see an outcome, and yeah, lovely. Job done. It's wrapped up, right? But yeah, there's lots of people like me. You know, I'm not unique in any way. There's lots of us. I think we just need to recognise it and leverage it more. I think it'll make the world of work a better place, to be honest.
So if we rewind back to growing up with that neurodiverse brain, how did you navigate that? Like, did you find it isolating? Did you find it maybe lonely in ways? Because, like, as you said, you're thinking a certain way that a lot of people around you are often not seeing the world in the same light.
Certainly isolating at times, yeah. Certainly lonely at times. I didn't have a label to attach to it. I didn't need one. I suppose, well, in terms of the label, it would have been nice to understand kind of what was going on, because it would have given a direction for, you know, how I would have thought about it or researched or whatever. But yes, definitely isolating at times. Difficult at times. But at other times, massive highs. You know, again, something with ADHD is, yeah, the lows can be very low, but the highs can be really high, you know, and really exciting. I figured it out, I guess, is the best way to put it. Yeah. You know, you build a lot of resilience, again, another overused term. You build a bit of toughness when you're coming through it, but that is really dependent on where you come from. Because there are neurodiverse people who really, really genuinely struggle with that isolation or that loneliness, or trying to find ways to cope with the deficits that come with it. So for me, you know, a stigma or a label you put on ADHD people is, oh, always late. I'm never late. I go the other way.
Okay.
Right? If I've got to be if I've got a meeting at 10, I'll be the latest. I'll be there at 9:30.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, even coming up here this morning, I know I arrived here, whatever it was, 20 minutes before we were to meet, but I was actually in the area for 20 minutes before that, just to know I was going to be here on time, because it's just one of those things, right? Or I'm actually quite organised. I know where everything is, you know. So, but that's something I had to become, right? I had to learn how to do, because I'm not naturally organised with paperwork and you know, projects and stuff like that. It's now pretty well organised, and I'd gotten to that long before I had any label. I just kind of learned to do it because I figured, okay, it's important. And a lot of that is down to the environment you come from. So I was lucky. I grew up in a really, really good environment, really supportive environment. When I was a bit older, when I needed some support, I could go and pay somebody to help me with that. When I had some mental health struggles, I could pay a therapist and a doctor. I was very lucky. Not everybody is that lucky, right? And the people that aren't as lucky will find it a bit harder, or can find it a bit harder. I'd also say that part of that was that ADHD tendency towards problem solving. So yeah, it's a problem, I need to figure it out. So I figured it out and over time kind of build that habit. Now, I don't want to paint the picture here that I'm super organised or, I'm still a bit scattered. My brain is still really, really busy. There's still a lot going on. But I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. And, I'm not overly worried what other people think of me. That's a big one.
That's a superpower in itself.
That's a really big one.
How do you get to that place? Because there's a lot of people that is the complete opposite.
I'm really not sure, to be honest.
It's a journey.
It is. You learn a lot about self-reliance and depending on yourself. So with that isolation and that sometimes loneliness, you've got to depend on yourself. I was fortunate in that I was always a pretty confident guy, at least outwardly, and I could manage the confidence internally. And I've developed a belief in doing hard things on purpose. You probably heard me say that before. I think there's a lot to be learned in doing hard things on purpose. And so far as I can remember, I've been doing that since I was in my teens, to one degree or another. And that helps. You start to learn that actually I can do this, right? Therapy has played a huge role for me as well. No point in saying it hasn't. But you get to a point where you have confidence in the things that you talk about and the things that you say, and you're not overly concerned with what other people think of you. That's not to say you don't care. It's a different.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. You do care, but you can handle it. I'm okay being me. That's not an easy thing to get to. That takes time. And it has taken me therapy as well as doing hard things on purpose, right? And I'm sure, look, there'll be times when that's rattled and it can be a bit unsteady. But you kind of come back to, okay, you've been here before. You can do this. I was telling you before we started recording about this thing called the fuck it switch that I'd use before speaking. Anyway, I've been doing it for years, but I only spoke about it at some talk there maybe a year ago. But the whole idea, and it's very Irish, right? That kind of fuck it'll be grand, kind of a way of approaching things. Now when you got to do something that's hard, or when you choose to do something that's hard, and you're choosing that. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it, so fuck it, I might as well do it right, or I might as well give it my best shot. And that's kind of the approach I take to things. Fuck it, go for it. See what happens. And if people don't like you, people don't like you. I know there's people out there that can't stand me. Grand.
Water off the duck's back.
It's not. It makes a bit of a dent, I'm sure, but what can I do about it?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to change myself to keep person X happy.
To fit into the mould.
It's just not me. And if I did do that, I would be stressed and kind of just mad at myself. So what's the point? There's no point.
I seen a good one the other day. The goal of life is to piss off as many people as you need to ensure that you don't piss off yourself.
I love that. Haven't heard that before, but I love that. That's cool. Yeah. Makes sense. I think so many people, and this is way beyond neurodiversity, but so many people live their lives trying to keep lots of other people happy. I'm interested in me, I'm interested in my daughter, I'm interested in my family in general, my partner, her son, my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews. That's what I'm really interested in. And a few friends.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a few good friends, and that's all I need. So they're the people. They're the people who know me. They get me, and I can be myself around them. So it's fine. They'll call me out if I'm being an ass.
Another thing, Cody Sanchez, she's coming up again here now. On Twitter, she said a good tweet, a good insight the other day about there's only 2 people that you need to make proud in your life. Mm-hmm. And it's not your mother, it's not your father, it's 8-year-old version of you and 80-year-old version of you.
I get that, yeah, I've seen that too. 8-year-old you has all sorts of aspirations, and it's this idea of in therapy, I suppose, of the inner child and all of that, and it's before we're massively conditioned to the ways of the world and society, and that's the dreamer. Mm-hmm. The 80-year-old is at the other end of that, and they're kind of looking back and saying, okay, do your best.
Yeah,
do your best. That's it. And for me, that's what it comes down to. Do your best.
So tell us, public speaking is probably one of the, I think it's the first or the second biggest fear in the world, is it?
I've read it's the first.
Is it?
Yeah, I've read it. I think that was a fairly big survey by Psychology Today at one stage. Anyway, yeah. Yes, I've read that too. And I love it. That's not to say I don't get nervous. I do.
Even today?
Oh God, yeah. I've done this thousands of times. That first few minutes, that's kind of that deep. Okay. And once you get over that first few minutes, you just kind of get into your flow, right? But one of the first formal presentations I ever had to give was in college, and 10 minutes beforehand I was in tears. I was a confident young man. I was doing this with buddies of mine. I thought, oh, geez, I'm going to get destroyed. In fairness, they didn't, but it was horrific. And what was it then, 20, 21? If you'd said to me then that, Brian, you make your living speaking in front of groups of people, big and small, I would have laughed. Not a hope. I'm never doing this again if I can avoid it. But I've gotten to a point where I really enjoy it. I mean, it's how I make my living. It's fun, and it can be fun. But again, part of that is actually not worrying so much about what people think of you. Mm. When I speak, I'm quite expressive. My facial expressions are different. I'll just go. It's as natural as I can make it. It's me, right? I'm not trying to pretend to be somebody else. I'm not trying to pretend to know more than I do. I'll speak as me, and I think that's a really important distinction, and that's part of where that fuck it switch comes from. Fuck it, just do you, just go, say your piece. Now, there's certain things that I think for people who are public speaking that can be problematic. I mean, for me, when I started, I'd write a script and I'd try and learn the script. And I found that very hard, because then I was worrying about what's the next line. And I've evolved that into, I'll write a talk, or I'll write the story, I'll read it, I'll dump it. Oh, Lucy's having a rest.
Lucy.
Good girl. And I'll dump it, right?
Yeah.
And from that, then I'll build a flow. So I'm going from this point to this point to this point to this point. And the flow won't have too many points, but I'll remember the flow.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I forget a piece of the flow, nobody else knows except me. And I'm okay with I should have said earlier on, or I'll just weave it back in somehow or other. So yeah, trying to remember what the script is, it can be a big challenge for a lot of people. But some people like that security, I guess. I don't know. I think forgetting who you are is a bit of a problem. So people are trying to emulate somebody else or speak in the style of somebody else. And you know, a lot of the time audiences really don't care that much about the style. They don't care that much if you slip up or stutter on a word or, you know, whatever it is. They're really interested in what you have to say. Yeah. Right? Obviously, if you're a bumbling mess, yeah, that's going to impact what you have to say. Right? But generally people are very forgiving. Audiences are very forgiving. You know, and nearly everybody will recognise that if you're standing in front of an audience of people, that's scary. You know, and most people who are sitting in the audience wouldn't be willing to do the same thing. So there's a degree of empathy given in most cases. But speaking for a living, it's fun. And when I say speaking, that can be a keynote, it can be a training, it can be facilitating, you know, the various forms. But it's great fun.
Any frameworks for like how to manage or navigate?
Let's be specific now. Navigate which?
The public speaking, like I imagine it's something a lot more people would love to do, but just the thoughts of it alone would scare a lot of people up. Like before, I under the communication coach, I think his name is Vin Jiang, he has different frameworks before he hops on stage.
I'm familiar with him.
Yeah.
He's really, really good.
He's brilliant, yeah.
He is one of the best out there.
Yeah, he's
Asian
class.
guy with glasses,
yeah, he's
kind of spiky hair.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. For me, I think, okay, there's a few things. Know what it is you want to say, right? And it obviously this is going to depend on the type of presentation you're doing. If this is, you know, you're presenting spreadsheets and stuff like that, okay, just be clear on what that is. If you're going to give a talk, be clear on what the core message is, right? One message, right? And then build the supporting arguments around that. The best way to get better at public speaking,
yeah, like a lot of things,
is to speak. It's just to do it.
Just to do it.
Right?
Rip the Band-Aid.
So for lots of people, the first challenge is actually getting up to do it the first time. The second challenge is recovering from a mistake. So you've gone up in front of a group and you've just made an absolute balls of it. I've done this in a corporate setting. Made an absolute balls of a talk. So it's recovering from that. But know that the more you do it, the better it gets. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And once it's gotten a bit easier, then you can start to work on the craft of public speaking and you know, developing the content and the messages that you want to give and how you give them. You know, when I talk about the craft, there are kind of two parts to that. One is the storytelling element of it, the content, and the other is the how. How do you intonate your voice? How do you use your body? How do you use the stage or the front of the room? Things like that. Let all that come later. If you want to go and do some public speaking, start by getting in front of an audience. Could be 5 people, doesn't really matter. But just start by doing that. I mean, Toastmasters are great. Now, I've been to a few Toastmaster sessions, but I was never a part of the group per se. You know, there's opportunities all the time at work to speak, whether that's delivering a piece at a meeting or actually giving a full-on presentation or, you know, asking questions at meetings, whatever. Just do it. That's it. I mean, you know, there's no secret sauce, there's no magic pill, there's no button, there's nothing like that. Like most things, you've just got to go do it. That's it. You know, then you can, once you've done it, and you've done it a few times, then you can start to work on as I say, on the craft and on the content, and making that better and better and better. But you got to start. That's it. That's the best bit. For me, my style, and this is the other thing actually, as you do more, you'll figure out your style. My style, I use story a lot, and I've developed my own frameworks around performance and things like that. And that's something that will happen. You got to be consciously doing it though. You got to, you know, thinking about okay, what works, what feels natural for me, what's resonating with an audience. Obviously, the audience are very important. So yeah, stories are a big one for me, and kind of building then the messages around that. And as I said to you, or as we mentioned earlier on, that idea of the focus switch, that is the big anxiety beater for me. It's like, fuck it, let's go. If you're going to do it, you might as well give it your best shot, right? Mm-hmm. And really, I can't say more than that. You know, beyond that, it becomes a very personal, individual thing. You know, we're not trying to create. We don't want to create speakers that are all the same. Again, what would be the point in that? If I want to go hear somebody speak, I'm interested in that human and that content, right? I'm not looking for somebody to be somebody that they're not, and that's what resonates with me. That's I feel it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're the same. You know, you'll feel that authenticity. That is often the hardest thing. To be authentic, to be yourself.
It's a wrestle.
Because in your head you're thinking, oh geez, why would all these people want to listen to me? Or, you know, why is this presentation important? Why am I the person? All that doubt. You got to park it, I'm afraid. You know, again, there's no magic bullet here. Just park it. Commit to doing the best you can. That's it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, no one can beat you at being you.
No.
You know?
No, not a soul. Not a soul. And either people who like it or they don't. Again, public speaking, or you know, speaking in front of groups of people, that's another really good leveler, actually, because, you know, there are going to be people that don't like you, don't like the content, disagree with you. And you have to, at some point, get comfortable with dealing with that. And if I'm being honest, one of my favourite parts of public speaking is Q&A. Love it. A large part of that is because I'm okay saying I don't know. Or I'm okay saying, actually, I didn't think of it that way. I don't know everything. Nobody does. I have my perspectives and I have my my accumulated knowledge, my experience, you know, my learning. That's what I have. But you got to get to a point where you're okay with saying, I don't know, or people disagreeing with you, and being able to take a breath and respond to that.
Yeah. Like, you're allowed to be a work in progress, you know? You don't need all the answers right now.
We all are, but we never will have all the answers. Ever.
It's something I write down every morning.
Yeah.
I am allowed to be a work in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very healthy. I wish I was doing that at your age. Yeah, but none of us is going to be finished until we're dead. Then it's finished because we can't grow anymore, right? But I worry about people who come out and say, well, I know it all. I am Nate. I'm the only person you'll ever need to talk to. No. Sorry, don't believe you. That's just not possible. But I am an expert in me, in the same way that you're an expert in you. And I think if we can leverage that and work with that, great. We're moving in the right direction.
Love that, love that. Double tap for a minute, Brian, on doing hard things. Where is the gold in that? Like, how did you start off doing hard things? What kind of hard things are you doing now? What's the hardest thing you've ever done?
Lots of things were hard when I was young. That's the same for all of us. You know, doing things for the first time, meeting people for the first time, and all of that. I did always like to push myself a bit harder. Now, there's the trade-off that comes with that then. I was also very hard on myself, which is a bit of a problem. Yeah. Hard beyond criticism, right? Doing hard things, again, it's something that's evolved for me, right? And in that, okay, as a teenager in particular, yes, I was different, so I had to deal with things and deal with situations that were challenging to me, and found that, okay, I can actually do this. Or if I wasn't able to do it, I could ask somebody. My parents were good. I could ask my dad in particular. You know, this happened. This is how I dealt with it. Didn't really work out, and he'd always have something wise to say. As I got a bit older, I started to realise I liked variety. I liked trying things. I liked experimenting. So that kind of lent itself naturally to doing things that were hard and doing them on purpose and seeing what happened. And I don't want to give the impression here that every time we did hard things, they worked. Actually, they probably failed more often than they worked, right? But it did enable me to learn about me, to learn what I was capable of, what I could deal with. It enabled me to have some amazing experiences and try things. The hardest thing I've ever done is grappling with my own mind. The ADHD brain, yes. The gift I got that came with that was anxiety. And anxiety is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, on purpose. The first time I had a panic attack, I was in my 30s, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I drove myself to the hospital, as you do when you think you're having a heart attack. It was only a 3-minute drive, right?
Fair enough.
And as it turned out, I wasn't. I was having a panic attack. But met an absolutely wonderful nurse who, when I was leaving, just before I left, asked, "Do you know what mindfulness and meditation is?" I said, "Oh, I do. Yeah, I do. You should practice more of that." And said, "Yeah, of course." In my head going, "No, I'm not telling a fucking soul about this." And for 2 years, had panic attacks nearly every day. I got so good at hiding them, I could have them in board meetings and people wouldn't notice.
What's the symptoms of a panic attack?
For me, feel like you're going to die, rapid heart rate, sweating, muscle twitches, sensations in the body as all the blood rushes towards your core to protect you, racing mind. That probably covers the most of it. It can happen without any reason, just start like that, come out of nowhere. So for that 2 years, and then the subsequent probably year and a half was probably the hardest thing I've ever done on purpose. After 2 years of panic attacks, I went to my doctor and it was a Wednesday morning. I just got up, didn't say anything to anybody, got in the car and drove to my doctor's office. His daughter was the receptionist, and I walked in. She said, "Oh, hi Brian, why are you here?" I said, I need to see Dan, please. And she said, "Okay, you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I need to see Dan." In fairness, in a few minutes, come on, let's have a chat. So I told him what was going on, and he was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Couldn't have asked for better. He gave me time, told me what was going on, explained the physiology of what was going on and what was going on in my head to a degree as best as he could. Encouraged me onto medication. So I used Lexapro, which is an antidepressant, for 6 months. My deal was minimum dose, minimum term, and you have to recommend talk therapy or a talk therapist. And he said, well, I was going to do that anyway. So between the medication and an amazing therapist, that set me on the right road. But without a doubt, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Without a doubt. Because it's very confronting. It's scary. It's vulnerable. And it's tough. Yeah, it's hard going.
Daily struggle.
It was then. I think now it's more habitual. It's kind of built into me. I mean, that first panic attack was 2008, so we're going back about 17 years, and I've dipped in and out of therapy since then. Absolutely worth it. I think everybody should do therapy.
I agree. Yeah.
It's such a good thing to do for yourself. I built up tools and techniques, and most importantly, understanding. Understanding of myself. Recognizing signs, doing things to insulate myself. Insulate might be the wrong word, actually. To help myself. Preventative. I don't drink coffee. I don't have any kind of caffeine anymore. Don't miss it. It's fine. And I do worry a bit. Looking at particularly young people and the levels of caffeine that are being consumed. But that's a whole other topic. And you learn what works and what doesn't work. You learn what your triggers are. I'm still stupidly competitive, which is important to me. But I do know, I do understand now better where I want to compete than before, if that makes sense. For anybody who struggles with the mental health, and there are a lot of people now, you know, it's really important that you do something about it. Again, I was very fortunate. I was in a position where I could afford to pay a therapist and afford to pay my doctor and afford the medication. Not everybody's in that boat. But even just talking about it, saying things out loud, you know, I didn't. I wasn't in an environment where I felt I could say it out loud, so I paid a doctor so I could say it out loud to him. But the very act of offloading it was freeing. It was relief. It was, I've told someone. I've shared it, right? So, you know, talking to a buddy, a sibling, a parent, and I think almost more importantly, being a buddy that somebody who's struggling can talk to.
Creating that space.
Right? I think all of us have a duty to our humanity to be the kind of person that, you know, if somebody is struggling, that they could come and say it to you. And all you have to do is listen. I don't think we realise how freeing that is for somebody who's in a difficult space. You know, that non-judgmental space where you can just say, fuck it, man, I'm really struggling. Here's what's going on. Let me just offload a bit. And for that to be okay. You know, that doesn't cost anything.
Priceless.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot to be said for it.
For sure, yeah. But I think, you know, there's lots of people who've struggled and are struggling far worse than I am or ever did. And I'd like to see a space where all of us help each other more, right? And I think, you know, to kind of come back to the work thing, work and the jobs we do and the environments we do it in is responsible for an awful lot of that mental health difficulty too. And it's unnecessary most of the time. You know, if we're leading people, I think we have to remember that we are simply humans leading other humans. And we can do that together as opposed to it being an us against them kind of thing, or we've got to take that person and rinse them for all they're worth. That's not going to do anything for performance. That's not going to do anything for a culture, except make it worse.
What's the big North Star, Brian? What's the kind of... I suppose a lot of people they have dreams, but some of them they might keep to themselves. Is there a dream that you might be chasing, or a vision or a North Star that you're chasing? What's the plan for the next 6 months, a year, 3 years?
I don't chase the money, or, you know, I'm not looking for I'm not looking to be famous or anything like that. I'm looking to work on interesting problems. I'm looking to do more hard things. I'm looking to work with interesting people. I'm looking to grow. Most important, I've got a daughter. I want to be a dad. I want to be the best dad that she could have. That's the most important thing in the world to me, right? So let's just put that there. That's always going to be there. But I'm motivated by interesting problems, and, you know, from a work perspective, I'm motivated by interesting problems, interesting people. I like people, believe it or not. I really like people. Even the assholes. I'm fascinated by people. The ego part of me wants to change the world of work and make it a better place.
Okay, that's the purpose.
I suppose that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I think, for two reasons. One, I think companies, organisations leave a huge amount of performance on the table. Equally, I think people can be much happier at work. They can really enjoy their work, but that requires both the organisation and the leaders within that organisation to recognise that, along with the people themselves, right? And there's too many people do work that doesn't fulfil them just because. Now, I understand that some people have to, right? But I'll take the approach that I can do that kind of one team in one business at a time, and to do as much of that as I possibly can. I've got these frameworks that I use, and I'm constantly developing that, around how teams develop, how performance is enabled, and I'd like to see them used more. But that's really just down to me getting in front of people. So, look, like I said, I'm not chasing any great big revenue goal. I love making money, don't get me wrong, but I'm not chasing any great revenue goal. I'm not trying to build an empire. I'm trying to make a difference and have an impact. And if I can keep doing that, I'm happy. And I want to do that for as long as I can. I don't plan on retiring at 65. I don't know what I do with myself. I really, really love the work I do. I don't like it, I love it. And I think for me, that's something worth holding on to. I get why people look forward to retirement. I get it, because a lot of the time they're not enjoying their work. But I know lots of people that are well beyond retirement age and are still working and still involved and still doing things. I'm the chair of a board of a local company. It's a community company, and one of the board members is 82, another is approaching 80, and both of these people would put 40-year-olds to shame. The way they approach, their zest for it, they're involved, they want to be involved, they're making really, really important contributions. I love that. Love to see it. And that board ranges from 82 to kind of early 30s. The synergy, use my corporate term, the energy is really, really good. So yeah, I like the idea of continuing to do this work for as long as I physically and mentally can. Yeah, that'll do me.
Amen.
That'll do me.
Love it, love it. And where can people check you out, Brian?
So if I'm in LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's the best one.
It's probably the best one. I do write fairly regularly on LinkedIn, although I've been quiet for the last few weeks. 2 websites. So I have a business with another guy called John McNamara, who's a really, really good coach. Again, shares similar philosophies to me, really good speaker too. And that's called Performance Nerds. So that's www.performancenerds.com. My own website is briandowns.com. So reach out, you got a question, I'm more than happy to answer it. If you just want to chat, that's cool too.
Nice one. Thanks for coming up, Brian.
Not a bother.
Good old crack. And
my pleasure.
Wisdom, lots of wisdom to share.
Yeah, we'll have a chat again.